Well, welcome back to Exhaust Sports Auto. My name is Kevin, and this is going to be the 1 week summary of owning the 2020 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid. I didn't own, but I just had it as a press car for a week, so tested it out. It is now officially gone, but I did have this vehicle, and my time with it is over. So if you want to see my full in-depth review that I did on the 2020 Sonata Hybrid, I will link that somewhere up top or below in the description box, whatever, and you can check that out. But this is for those who are too lazy to check out that near half an hour review. So here's kind of the summary of everything I love and what I dislike. Disclaimer though, this vehicle, out of all the press cars I've had, this is one of the most enjoyable test vehicles I've ever had. I really thoroughly enjoyed just driving this. This is a great daily driver, daily commuter type of car. It just hit everything that I needed a normal car to do, and honestly, Hyundai, Kia, they typically do that anyway with almost all their cars. For instance, I recently had the 2020 Santa Fe, loved it. And what do these cars do that I love so much? Well, they are quiet and they are comfortable. That is first and foremost, that is the most important things to me anyway, that a normal car needs to do, and these Hyundai vehicles are hitting that right out of the park, so that is perfect. Now this car, this brand new Sonata, has a little flair, has a bit of swag to it now. They're trying to inject some more flair and some passion into these mid-sized cars, I guess, because the SUVs are all the trend nowadays, and not as many mid-sized vehicles are being sold like they used to, so now they need to spruce them up a little bit, spice it up, and they give it a little bit more of a edgy design, if you will, and they did not fail because this Sonata was demanding a lot of heads. A lot of people were looking at this thing as it was going down the road at stoplights, all that good stuff. So if you like attention, even this little gray car got a bunch of it. So if you go with that yellow color or something like that, you will be like the talk of town, I'm sure. But also, like I mentioned before, it's quiet and comfortable, but it did something that not a lot of these mid-sized cars were able to do for me. For instance, I really love the Honda Accord. I thought that car was pretty much like the best mid-sized car out there. I did handling, it did ride comfort, all these things extremely well. But the place where this Hyundai deviated from that was it just lowered my blood pressure. I just really appreciated driving this car. There was just a level of tranquility to the driving experience of this thing that I just can't really properly put into words, but it was just so nice just to waft down the road in this thing, because again, it is quiet, it is comfortable. A lot of cars are, but something about this Hyundai, it was just a pleasure to drive. The steering was nice and just easy to pilot. It was just a true pleasure to operate this car, and that's why I said if I was in the market for a kind of daily driver type cars, my default choice would be some sort of a Hyundai. And I've said this multiple times, even in the Santa Fe video, that if you're confused, I get it. There are a lot of options, a lot of different manufacturers. I would say go to a Hyundai dealership and go test drive that first. Make sure that is like the first car that you go out and drive, and then benchmark everything else to that. I think price-wise, everything, the value proposition, it's pretty much unbeatable. It's loaded up with a ton of features. It's got a pretty spacious trunk. This is a hybrid, so it's smart and it's efficient, of course. That's the main reason why you buy a hybrid, right? This thing costs about 35 grand. You can get a blue trim, which is like 27 grand. That's the cheapest hybrid model you can get, and it will get the best gas mileage as well. Me flooring it, foot to the floor everywhere, I was getting about 40 mpg. I think this thing is rated at 47 city, 54 highway, something like that. And the blue trim adds about 4 to 5 mpg on top of that. So very efficient car. I was just pegging it all the time, but again, that was just for testing purposes. This car does not actually instigate that type of driving. I'm usually a foot to the floor type of person, but in this car, I just really did not have the need or the urge to drive like that. And that's a good thing, because one of the negatives are this car is not very fast. It gives you that initial thrust up front, similar to a turbo car, because it's that electric motor, of course. It makes about 192 horsepower. And the torque figure is not disclosed, but I'm sure it's over 200 pounds-feet. So it gives you that nice rush of power off the line, but then just dies down. So that's kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. So don't expect this thing to be like a rocket ship off the line. Maybe test drive the 1.6 liter turbo Sonata if you want a little bit more pep. And this car, I love that Hyundai did this. It has a full just solar panel roof thing going on. There's only a few cars that try to utilize this. There's that Fisker Karma, that little Nissan Leaf thing had a little patch of a solar panel on top of it. This one, the whole roof is, and it's brilliant because it gives you an extra 700 miles of range every single year. So it's about 2 miles per day throughout the year, which is really smart. And the other thing is you can just constantly just have the engine turned off, but have the vehicle on, right? And listen to music or have the air conditioning system running, the HVAC going, and it won't just drain out the battery because the solar panel is actually powering the battery system. So it's giving the range and it's powering up like your regular battery that fuels all your, accessory controls, right? So really brilliant. I love seeing smart, intuitive things like that, especially in affordable cars like this. It's very stable out on the highway. And, Hyundai just continues to listen. That's the great thing. They're always continuously improving. They're not just settling down, like a certain manufacturers are. They're actually continuing to listen and continuing to give the consumers a better product, which is another reason why I like this company so much. The vehicle's nice and smooth. There's nothing weird about it when you drive it. The brakes are good. Driving it is very normal, like you don't even sense the engine cutting on or off or any of that stuff. It's just a very nice, smooth transition. So there's none of that, strange things with the hybrid system. It feels like you're driving a normal car other than some of the, noises and stuff that it makes. I'll touch on that in a bit. Other things it handles really well. I saw some other journalists review this car, and two things that they said were it had a jittery ride and it didn't handle too well. Two of the things I really loved the most, ride quality and the handling. It had a nice kind of secure planted handling feel to it. It kind of pivoted around turns. Granted, this thing is not a Porsche 911. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's just capable enough for the roads. Another thing that aids its handling characteristic is that even though it's a hybrid, it doesn't weigh much. It's like 3,500 pounds. If you lift down the rear seats, because you can fold down the rear seats in this car, you feel the seat. It doesn't weigh anything, which is pretty awesome. I mean, this car, it's smart, man. They cut a lot of weight out of this, and it's still a comfortable place to be, so that's fantastic. Now let's talk about some of the dislikes, and there are some important ones here. First of which, this is the first press car I have ever damaged in my entire life. And I'm being serious about that. It's not a clickbait thing. I had my camera mount mounted to the front windshield of the Sonata, to do my review, right? So I always mount a camera up there. I use a Manfrotto mount to do that. And it's like this big suction cup thing, right? I try to remove this suction cup. I didn't do anything drastic with it. I just pulled on a little tab like you're supposed to, like I did with the last 100 cars I had this mount in, right? Because I use this mount all the time. I've did over 100 car reviews using this mount. And I try to pull the tab on it, and somehow under the pressure, when I removed that mount, it just cracked the glass. The whole thing was like a spider web like crack. The whole thing, I mean, I've never seen anything like that before. That was kind of interesting. And it's like nobody can be mad at me because it wasn't really my fault. Thankfully, I've never damaged a car due to my driving, so nobody can really be mad at me, right? But it's just interesting to see. I think this car uses some type of weaker glass. I did mention that this car's quiet, especially around town, but I do have to mention, out on the highway, yes, it's super stable, like I mentioned, like 70 plus miles per hour, not even an issue. But, the wind noise was starting to get much, much higher, and that's normal, of course, but this is like, obviously coming from like the front end, you know what I'm saying? So maybe something about the glass wasn't that great. You know what's funny? A couple days afterwards, I was on the highway, and some truck just flung some rocks at us, and I just chipped the windshield. So, I don't know. I guess even if it survived me pulling off the mount, the car's windshield would have had to been replaced anyway because a truck just flung a rock at us. So, I mean, that was kind of inevitable, but I'm just saying maybe Hyundai needs to look into putting some stronger glass into this vehicle. That could really improve. But here's the thing. They use like this, at least they tout on their website, this double junction, double pane glass, right? With this soundproofing material in the middle of it. And when you look at the side windows, like the passenger side window, like the driver's side window, you notice that they do put double pane glass in it. So something about the windshield, I don't know. Maybe they can improve it. But I just thought that was interesting. From now on, I'm going to use a more conservative way of sliding a credit card into my mount and then releasing the gas that way and then removing the mounts because I'm not taking any more chances with that, but just very strange. Other things, infotainment, not as easy to use as the previous generation Hyundais. I just really like their 8.4-inch screen and their regular gauge cluster. I thought that was perfection. This, they went a little bougie with it. They got this little screen in the gauge cluster place and this huge screen, which is like this split screen thing going on. It's just too much, and I don't know. It looks great, the screen quality is fantastic, but like, I don't know, it's just too much going on nowadays, and it used to be simpler, so something I noticed, but it's not a big deal. If you bought the car, you can easily get used to it. It's still one of the best infotainments ever, so not really a huge con there, but it is what it is. Now here's another big one. I didn't mention this in my review. I forgot to mention this in my review. So it's an electric car, and I did mention that there's not a whole lot of strangeness driving it, but there's like this government mandated law where these electric hybrid vehicles, they need to make some sort of sound or noise to let passerbyers or pedestrians know that a car is coming. So this car, it makes a pretty cool sound. I really like it. Me personally, I like this. I don't find this to be a con in any way. I like the little kind of musical tone that it has when it's just hovering about in its hybrid only mode. I think it's just really cool. But the negative that I noticed was, especially if you're really just sensitive to everything, you know, you're just an abomination to society, you're just looking at things, you're just looking for things to be offended at or just to be bothered by. This may bother you. If you get on the brakes, I've noticed that it does this kind of weird, almost like you have the TV on and you have the static type of noise, like that type of noise that some people don't really like. I kind of notice that slightly when I'm braking, and only when I'm braking. So something I noticed, I know a lot of people, you know, it like grinds their nerves when they hear like little weird noises like that. So something you might want to check out. Me personally, I like all the little noises that this car has to make. So there's like this glare on the climate control. So climate control also kind of strange to use, but you get used to it. But most importantly, when you're driving out and it's sunny out, it's really hard to see your temperatures or like your fan speed, stuff like that. It's a little bit difficult. So another thing I noticed there. Also, the hybrids don't get the key fob thing where you can kind of like, similar to a BMW 7 Series, where you can like park it using your key fob, you know, like you can move it forward and back out of like a tight parking situation or whatever. I think the gasoline cars are the only ones that can do this. Hyundai needs to add this to their hybrid model, but they're not sure if they're going to do it or not. But just if you're looking at the hybrid, you don't get that feature. If you cared about it, it's kind of pointless anyway. It's more so of a gimmick, but whatever. Also, speaking of keys, they offer this NFC key. I'm not a fan of NFC keys. I don't like where that's going, because eventually an NFC key is going to end up in your wrist, in your forehead, or whatever, and the car is going to scan that. Or I don't like that. I don't like that stuff. I don't like that type of technology being implemented and being used, but that's an option. You don't have to get that. I didn't get that with this vehicle. I'm just saying. That's just kind of a conspiracy talk, but regardless, I don't like it. But again, you don't have to get it with this car. It doesn't just come with it. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that I love and dislike about this car. This is still, despite all the dislikes, I still maintain that this is one of the best mid-sized cars. I think honestly this car has my money, especially due to the price tag of it. It starts at like 23 grand for like a base model car with like 16-inch wheels. It'll be the best riding, and it won't be the best looking, but it'll be the cheapest and the best riding car. It's just nice to know that you can get a car this nice for not a whole lot of money. I really appreciate Hyundai, and I really appreciate them making cars that people can afford, that are nice and they're kind of cool, you know. So they're going to change their whole brand perception. I know that moving forward, if they keep making quality cars like this, and if Genesis comes out with those really nice cars that they said that they were going to come out with, this brand is going to do a complete 180. It already has, but now the brand perception, everybody's going to fall in love with these cars. I absolutely know it. So if you're looking at a vehicle that's affordable as a family car, look into some of these Hyundais. I think it's a good vehicle to invest in. So with that, that is my summary of the 2020 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid. Hope you found value with it. Thank you again for watching. Take care and goodbye.